everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel where we do painting tutorials. Today we'll be doing a little Serene landscape bookmark. This is actually the full-time painting tutorial I did for my Patreon page, but I really like how it turned out, so I thought I'd upload a shorter version here. I've started by taping down my paper with some masking tape. Now just be using a light and a dark blue for this. Feel free to use any colors and any sets. You don't absolutely need to use the same exact art supplies as me. And I colored the upper half of my bookmark with the light blue. I used less pressure towards the center, towards the horizon, and slightly more pressure upwards. Then I take a watercolor brush and I blend from light to dark, aka from the palm upwards, going left to right and right to left. While the upper side dries, I repeat the same exact steps to the bottom portion. Then I do the same exact steps to the bottom portion. I use very slightly more pressure towards the horizon because I'll have some mountains in the middle, and slightly less pressure towards the bottom. I take my watercolor brush and I blend from the bottom upwards, again going horizontally because I want this to look very smooth, almost whimsical like, because I don't want this to be too much of a realistic painting. I want this to be a cute little bookmark that you just open your book and see it and it puts a little smile on your face. I go up and down a couple of times just to make sure everything is extra smooth, and once the sky and the lake have fully dried, again just using my light blue color, I sketch some very basic mountain shapes over the lake. I fill them in with the light blue and just add a smidge of my darker shade. Then with a barely damp watercolor brush, I go over it. First I like to do the edge to make sure it's nice and crisp, and then I blend the inside of the mountain. If drawing is not your thing, there is going to be a traceable available down in the description of this video, completely free, and a list of all of the materials I have used throughout this video. Now while my mountain dries, I sketch the foreground. I want to be very random, to have some random foliage growing over the shore, and I color it in using only my dark blue for this, because it is the portion that's going to be closest to us, so that's why I want it to be the darkest. You also see I'm going to be layering a couple of mountains over the horizon, and with each new layer it's going to get slightly darker and darker because they get closer to us. So I'm just scrambling some random shapes here, nothing fancy, nothing extra. Just make sure to use a bit extra pressure to make it extra saturated. If you use barely any pressure, you get very light results, and if you use more pressure, then you get more saturated results. But don't go denting your paper. If you're using cheaper quality pencils, then they just may not have as much pigment in them and you'll just end up denting the paper. But slightly better quality art supplies tend to be a bit creamier, so when you press you get a very smooth, almost oil pastel kind of like results. Now again with a barely damp brush, and when I say barely damp I mean if you touch the bristles to the back of your hand, it should feel wet but it should not leave a droplet. That is a very nice test you can do. I just go over this bottom piece we just did, enough to activate it and smooth it out. I'm not using a tapping motion like I do when I paint realism, because like I said, I want this to be a serene, whimsical landscape. I add a bit more pieces, a bit more leaves and plants with the excess color I have left on my bristles. And once the mountain has dried, I take my dark blue and I outline a new mountain shape on top, but I try not to cover too much of the previous layer. So I've outlined my second mountain, I fill it in with light blue, and then I'm going to add a bit of the darker tone on top of it. So I want the one that's first in the background to be mostly light blue with a smidge of dark blue. The middle one is going to be about 50-50, and the one that is going to be closest to us is going to be fully dark blue. Just like for the previous one, I start by going over the edge first, just to make sure it's nice and crisp. And then I blend it slightly downwards, but not going too much over the lake. While that dries, I take my dark blue and I sketch out some vines falling from the top. Maybe there's a willow tree where we're sitting, I don't know. And once I have enough vines fall different sizes, different lengths, I scribble some dots over them to make it look like leaves. You can add as many or as few as you'd like, completely up to you. I just want to fill in that top portion so it looks a bit more balanced. And then with my watercolor brush, I gently tap on the leaves just enough to activate them and really make the pigment pop more, because water does blend watercolor pencils but also activates them, meaning it activates the pigment. And for some colors like this dark blue, which is actually sapphire blue that I'm using, it really makes it saturated, it makes it pop, it makes it very vibrant, and that is why I'm doing this extra step. By now all of my mountains have dried, so I take a ruler to make sure I get a nice straight line, and then I slightly thicken it up to make it look like a final mountain. Lastly, I go over it with my brush just enough to smooth it out, and that is it. Then I just slowly peel off the tape in the opposite direction to avoid tearing up my paper. I like to give a very special thank you to my Patreon supporters for the month of November, and thank you all for watching. If you found this video useful, let me know down in the comments, and we'll see each other in the next one. Bye bye!